$0?
$0. Jessie stared at the receipt. The billionaire in the corner booth, Claire Montgomery, had just paid for a $347 meal with her black card and left nothing. His hands shook. Ella's medicine cost $280 due tomorrow. He lifted the plate to clear it. A folded note fell out. "Meet me outside. 5 minutes. This changes everything. CM." But before we find out what that note means, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Now, let me tell you how Jessie ended up at that table. 4 years ago, Jesse Parker had everything figured out. He was a financial analyst at Montgomery Capital, pulling 6 figures, living in a Brooklyn brownstone with his wife Rachel and their 4-year-old daughter Ella. Sunday mornings meant pancakes shaped like animals, Rachel singing off-key in the kitchen, Ella's laughter echoing through their home. "Daddy, this one looks like a dinosaur ate another dinosaur," Ella giggled, poking at her pancake. "That's because it is a dinosaur eating another dinosaur," Jessie said, flipping another misshapen circle onto her plate. "I'm not as good at this as Mommy." Rachel kissed the top of his head. "You're perfect at what matters." What mattered was showing up, being present. Jesse had learned that from his own father's absence. He'd grown up in foster care after his dad walked out when he was 6. Jesse swore he'd never do that to his own kid. Every school play, every doctor's appointment, every bedtime story, he was there. Work was good too. Jesse had a gift for numbers, for seeing patterns others missed. His boss, Mr. Christian Vance, had just promoted him to senior analyst. "You've got instincts, Parker," Christian had said. "Trust them." The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday. Rachel collapsed while picking Ella up from preschool. By the time Jesse got to the hospital, the doctors had already run a dozen tests. The neurologist's face told him everything before the words came out. "Glioblastoma, stage 4. We're looking at 12 to 18 months, maybe less." Jesse's world tilted. "There has to be treatment. Surgery, chemo, something. We'll do everything we can," the doctor said. "But Mr. Parker, you need to understand the prognosis." The next 9 months blurred together. Experimental treatments their insurance barely covered. Rachel getting weaker. Ella asking why Mommy couldn't play anymore. Jesse burning through their savings, then their retirement accounts, then borrowing from everyone who'd lend. Christian Vance gave him time off, but time wasn't enough. Money was the problem. The experimental drug that might help cost $45,000 per treatment. Their insurance denied it, not FDA approved for her cancer type. Jesse made a choice he'd regret forever. He saw it in the accounts he managed, a pattern of money moving through shell companies. His boss, Christian, was laundering funds for Montgomery Capital's biggest client, a real estate developer with mob connections. Jesse had ignored it before, told himself it wasn't his problem. Now he needed it to be his problem. "I need $90,000, Jesse told Christian in his office after hours. 2 treatments for Rachel. I know about the Castellano accounts. I've kept quiet. Consider this payment for my silence." Christian's face went cold. "That sounds like extortion, Jesse. That sounds like my wife dying while you move dirty money for gangsters. You have no proof, but threatening me, I have witnesses to that." Christian picked up his phone. "Security?" Jesse was fired within the hour, escorted out by guards while his colleagues watched. By the next morning, Christian had reported him to the SEC for suspected insider trading, a complete fabrication, but with enough fake evidence planted in Jesse's computer to make it stick. The investigation destroyed what was left of Jesse's life. Legal fees ate their last savings. No firm would hire him with an SEC investigation pending. Rachel got sicker. Ella stopped smiling. Rachel died on a Sunday morning. No pancakes, no singing. Just Jessie holding her hand while she took her last breath, and Ella sleeping in the hospital chair because Jessie couldn't afford both a hotel and the hospital parking. "Take care of our girl," Rachel whispered. "Promise me." "I promise. I swear to God, I promise." The SEC eventually cleared Jessie. Insufficient evidence, but the damage was done. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. Christian Vance had gotten away clean, promoted to Chief Financial Officer of Montgomery Capital. Jessie and Ella moved into a studio apartment in Queens. He took whatever work he could find, night shifts at warehouses, delivery driving, finally landing at Marino's, an upscale restaurant in Manhattan where the tips were decent and they didn't Google their waitstaff. That's where he'd been working for 2 years when Claire Montgomery walked in. Jessie didn't recognize her at first. He'd seen her name on documents back at Montgomery Capital. She was the CEO, the founder's granddaughter who'd taken over at 32 and turned the firm into a powerhouse. But he'd never seen her in person. She always came in alone, always ordered the same thing: seared scallops, no wine, sparkling water. She'd sit in the corner booth with her laptop and work through dinner. Professional, distant. She tipped exactly 20%, never more, never less, until tonight. Tonight, she'd looked different, tired. Her usual perfect composure cracked around the edges. She'd barely touched her food, just stared at her screen like it held bad news she couldn't look away from. When Jessie brought the check, she'd signed it without looking up. He'd glanced at the tip line out of habit. 0. His heart sank. It was the 15th of the month. Ella's medication, the anti-seizure medicine she'd needed since Rachel died, since the stress had triggered some kind of neurological response the doctors said was anxiety-related, but required expensive prescriptions, was due tomorrow. $280. He'd been counting on tonight's tips to make up the shortfall. Jessie had cleared her table with hands that wanted to shake but wouldn't let themselves. He'd been angry, sure, but more than that, he'd been scared. Scared of telling Ella they had to skip a dose, scared of what that might mean. Then the note fell out. "Meet me outside. 5 minutes. This changes everything. CM." Jessie stood in the alley behind Marino's, the December cold biting through his white server's shirt. Ella was at their neighbor Mrs. Chen's apartment, probably already asleep. He should go home. This was weird, possibly dangerous, definitely. "Thank you for coming." Claire Montgomery stood at the alley entrance, still in her black cashmere coat. Up close, she looked younger than her 36 years and older at the same time, the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying weight that didn't show on a scale. "Ms. Montgomery, I don't understand." "You're Jessie Parker." Not a question. "You worked at my company 4 years ago. Christian Vance destroyed your career because you discovered he was laundering money through our accounts." Jessie's blood went cold. "I don't know what I found out 3 hours ago." Claire pulled out her phone, showed him a screen full of financial documents. "I've been investigating irregularities in our books for 6 months. Tonight I finally traced them all back to Christian, shell companies, offshore accounts, money moving for the Castellano family, exactly what you threatened to expose." He said I had no proof. "You didn't, but I do now." Claire's eyes were fierce. "Christian filed a false SEC complaint against you. He planted evidence of insider trading on your computer. He did it to silence you because you were right." Jessie leaned against the brick wall. 4 years. 4 years of struggling, of watching Rachel die without the treatment that might have saved her, of lying to Ella about why they couldn't live in their old house anymore. "Why tell me this?" "Because I'm going to destroy him. Legally, completely. But I need your help." Claire stepped closer. "You saw the patterns first. You understand his methods. I need someone I can trust to help me build an airtight case, someone who has as much reason to want justice as I do. I'm a waiter. You're a brilliant financial analyst who got railroaded by a criminal. Claire pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. This is my private number. Think about it. I'm offering you a consulting position at Montgomery Capital, $150,000 salary, full benefits, and a chance to make Christian Vance pay for what he did. Jesse looked at the card, at the number, at the woman who'd left him a $0 tip because she'd been planning something bigger. I have a daughter. She's 8. I work nights so I can take her to school and pick her up. Flexible hours. We'll make it work. Claire's expression softened. I know what he cost you, Jesse. I've read the files. I'm so sorry about your wife. The sympathy nearly broke him. Jesse swallowed hard. Why do you care? You run a billion-dollar company. Christian's one employee. Because he did this using my company, my name, my family's legacy. Claire's voice shook with controlled fury. My grandfather built Montgomery Capital on integrity. Christian Vance turned us into a criminal enterprise, and I'm going to tear out that rot, even if it burns everything down. Jesse believed her. More than that, he felt something he hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. When do I start? Claire smiled, really smiled. Monday. Come to my office at 9. We have work to do. She turned to leave, then stopped. The 0 tip. I'm sorry. I couldn't write what I needed to say on a credit card receipt, but this should help. She handed him an envelope. Inside was $5,000 in cash. For Ella's medicine, and everything else you've been struggling with. Claire met his eyes. No one should have to choose between their child's health and paying rent. Consider it an advance on your salary. Jesse couldn't speak. He just nodded. Claire walked away, heels clicking on the wet pavement. Jesse stood in the alley for 5 full minutes, envelope in hand, card in his pocket, feeling like his life had just been handed back to him by a woman who'd left him $0 and changed everything. Monday morning, Jesse walked into Montgomery Capital for the first time in 4 years. The lobby still looked the same, marble floors, abstract art, the fountain sculpture he'd always thought looked like metal birds escaping a cage. Security recognized him. Mr. Parker, I thought, he's with me. Claire appeared at the security desk. Today she wore a navy suit, hair pulled back, all business. Jesse Parker is consulting for my office directly. Full access. She handed him a security badge with his photo already programmed in. She'd been certain he'd say yes. Come on, we have a lot of ground to cover. Claire's office was on the 63rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, minimalist furniture, walls lined with law degrees and industry awards, and spread across a massive conference table, 4 years of financial records. This is everything I've compiled on Christian. Claire pulled up a digital file on the wall-mounted screen. What I need from you is to find the patterns. He's buried the evidence in layers of legitimate transactions. You found it once before. I need you to find it again. But this time, we document everything. Jesse rolled up his sleeves. For the first time since Rachel died, his brain felt fully engaged. He'd missed this, the puzzle of numbers, the satisfaction of watching patterns emerge from chaos. Show me the Castellano accounts. They worked for 12 hours straight. Claire ordered lunch, then dinner. They drank terrible office coffee and filled 3 whiteboards with transaction flows. Around 8 p.m., Jesse's phone buzzed, Mrs. Chen asking when he'd pick up Ella. Go, Claire said immediately. Family first. I can work from... Jesse, go get your daughter. This will be here tomorrow. Something in her voice made him look up. She was staring at a photo on her desk he hadn't noticed before. A younger Claire with an older couple, all 3 smiling. Your parents? They died in a car accident 6 years ago. That's when I inherited the company. Claire touched the frame gently. I understand about protecting your daughter. Don't ever apologize for that. Jessie went home, picked up Ella, made her mac and cheese and tucked her in. She looked so much like Rachel it hurt. Dad, why are you smiling? I got a new job, baby. Things are going to get better. Will we move back to our old house? Maybe not that house, but somewhere nice, I promise. Ella fell asleep holding his hand. Jessie sat there thinking about promises he'd made to Rachel, promises he'd thought he couldn't keep. Maybe now he could. The next 3 months were intense. Jessie and Claire worked together almost daily, sometimes in her office, sometimes in conference rooms, once in a secure facility where they met with FBI agents building their own case against Castellano family money laundering. But it wasn't easy from the start. The first week, Jessie walked into a conference room full of Montgomery Capital's senior analysts, people who'd been there when he was fired, people who'd believed Christian's lies about insider trading. You've got to be kidding me, said Marcus Wu, the head of compliance. We're supposed to work with him, the guy who tried to blackmail Christian. That's not what happened, Claire said sharply. Jessie discovered Christian's illegal activities and was punished for it. We're here to set the record straight and prevent this company from being destroyed by one man's crimes. Or, said another analyst Jessie didn't recognize, he's got an axe to grind, and you're letting him spin whatever story he wants. Jessie felt the old shame rising. 4 years of being treated like a criminal, of people crossing the street to avoid him, of Ella asking why her friend's parents wouldn't let them come over anymore. Look at the documents, Jessie said quietly. Just look at them. The pattern is there. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the numbers. He spent 6 hours walking them through it. Shell companies registered in Delaware with no real business activity. Wire transfers that matched Castellano family real estate purchases within days. Christian's personal signature on transfer authorizations he shouldn't have had access to. The evidence was overwhelming once you knew where to look. Marcus Wu stared at his laptop screen for a full minute after Jessie finished. Jesus Christ, it's real. It's real, Claire confirmed. Christian Vance has been using our company to launder money for organized crime for at least 4 years, maybe longer. We need to find every transaction, document everything, and cooperate fully with federal investigators. The board is going to lose their minds, someone muttered. The board, Claire said coldly, should have caught this themselves. I'm bringing them evidence tomorrow. Anyone who has a problem with this investigation can resign. No one resigned. But Jessie could feel the tension, the suspicion. These people didn't trust him. They'd have to earn each other's respect the hard way. Over the following weeks, Jessie proved himself. He found patterns no one else saw. He connected transactions across years of records. He built timelines that made Christian's crimes impossible to deny. Slowly, the senior analysts stopped treating him like an intruder and started treating him like a colleague. You're really good at this, Marcus Wu admitted one late night, both of them reviewing offshore account transfers. I'm sorry for believing Christian, for not looking deeper when you were fired. You didn't know. I should have. That's my job, to know when something's wrong. Marcus rubbed his eyes. Christian played us all. He played everyone except Claire. She's terrifying when she's angry, in a good way. Marcus glanced toward Claire's office, where she was on the phone with federal prosecutors. She could have buried this, protected the company's reputation. Instead, she's burning it all down to get at the truth. That's integrity. That's rare. Christian Vance had no idea the walls were closing in. The board meeting was brutal. Claire presented their findings to 12 board members in the main conference room. Jesse sat beside her, laptop ready with documentation, feeling like he was on trial again. "You're telling us our CFO is a criminal," said Richard Blackstone, the longest-serving board member, "based on the word of a man Christian fired for attempted extortion? Based on 4 years of financial records, offshore account transfers, and federal investigation corroboration?" Claire shot back. "Jesse discovered this. Christian destroyed his life to hide it. Now we have proof. Proof that could destroy this company's reputation," another board member said. "Claire, your grandfather spent 50 years building Montgomery Capital's name. You want to throw that away?" "My grandfather would want us to do the right thing." "The right thing is protecting our clients, our employees, our shareholders. If this gets out, it's already out." Claire stood up. "I've been cooperating with the FBI for 2 months. They're building a RICO case against the Castellano family. Montgomery Capital's laundered transactions are part of that case. We can either be victims who cooperated or co-conspirators who covered it up. I know which one I choose." The room erupted. 3 board members demanded Claire's resignation. 2 more threatened to sue. Jesse watched Claire stand there, absolutely unmoved, letting them rage. "Are you finished?" Claire asked calmly when the shouting died down. "Because I have 51% voting control of this company. My grandfather made sure of that when he left it to my mother, who left it to me. I don't need your approval. I'm telling you as a courtesy." "You'll regret this," Blackstone said. "I regret that Christian Vance was able to use my family's company for organized crime. I regret that good people like Jesse Parker were destroyed to keep it quiet. I don't regret bringing the truth to light." Claire's voice could have cut glass. "Anyone who wants to resign from this board, there's the door. Otherwise, we cooperate fully with federal investigators, and we rebuild." 4 board members resigned that day. Claire replaced them with people who valued integrity over reputation. The rest fell in line. Afterward, Jesse found Claire in her office, standing at the window, visibly shaking. "Hey!" He touched her shoulder gently. "You okay?" "I just blew up my family's company." "You saved your family's company. There's a difference." "Blackstone was at my parents' funeral. He held me while I cried. And today, I basically told him to get out. Today you chose truth over comfort. Your parents would be proud." Claire turned to him, eyes wet. "How do you know?" "Because you're their daughter. They raised you to have integrity, even when it costs you everything." Jesse pulled her into a hug. "Just like you're helping me prove I had it too." Claire held onto him tightly. In that moment, something shifted between them. It wasn't just professional anymore. It wasn't just about the case. It was about 2 people who'd both lost everything and were fighting to build something better from the wreckage. Jesse learned things about Claire during those long hours. She'd taken over Montgomery Capital at 32, after her parents died, never married, had a younger brother who died of a drug overdose 2 years after their parents. The company was all she had left of her family. "That's why this matters so much," she told him one late night, both of them exhausted, working through transaction records from 3 years ago. "Christian didn't just commit crimes. He desecrated my family's legacy. Everything my grandfather built, everything my parents protected, Christian turned it into a criminal tool." "We'll get him," Jesse promised. "I know." Claire looked at him with something that wasn't quite trust yet, but was getting close. "Because you already stopped him once. You just didn't have the power to make it stick. You have that power. We have that power. Together." Somewhere in those 3 months, it stopped being just about the case. Jesse noticed when Claire laughed at his jokes. Really laughed, not the polite executive chuckle, but genuine amusement. He noticed she brought his coffee exactly how he liked it without asking. He noticed she asked about Ella constantly, wanted to see photos, remembered details about her school play and her best friend's name. Claire noticed Jessie stayed late even after she told him to go home. Noticed he caught mistakes no one else would see. Noticed he had a habit of running his hand through his hair when he was concentrating. She noticed the way he talked about Ella with fierce protective love. The way he never complained about the years Christian stole from him. The way he treated everyone in the building with kindness. Janitors, security guards, executives, all the same. "You're a good man, Jesse Parker," Claire said one night, both of them standing at her office window watching the city lights. "You're a better boss than you need to be." "I'm not your boss anymore. You're a consultant." Claire smiled. "Which means I'm allowed to ask if you'd want to have dinner sometime. Not working dinner, just dinner." Jesse's heart kicked. "Like a date? If you're interested. If not, that's fine. We can keep this professional." "I'm interested." Claire's smile could have lit up the whole building. They went to a small Italian place in the village. No talk of Christian Vance, no financial records, just two people getting to know each other outside of work. Jesse told her about growing up in foster care, about meeting Rachel in college, about the promise he'd made to be present for his daughter. Claire told him about the pressure of living up to her family name, about missing her brother every single day, about building Montgomery Capital into something her grandfather would be proud of. "I don't date much," Claire admitted over tiramisu. "Most men are either intimidated by my money or only interested in it." "I was terrified to ask you to pass the salt earlier," Jesse said. "Does that count as intimidated?" Claire laughed. "You were not." "I absolutely was. You're Claire Montgomery. I'm the guy who serves scallops." "You're the guy who stood up to corruption when it cost you everything. You're the guy who kept his family together through tragedy. You're the guy who sees patterns no one else can see." Claire reached across the table, took his hand. "You're the guy I can't stop thinking about." Jessie squeezed her hand. "I haven't been on a date since Rachel. I don't know if I'm ready to." "We'll go slow as you need." They went slow. Dinner once a week, coffee on weekends. Claire met Ella at a museum trip, nervous, prepared, bringing a gift that was thoughtful without being excessive, a book series Ella had mentioned wanting. Ella liked her immediately. "She's smart like you, Dad. She's smarter than me." "Is she your girlfriend?" Jessie hesitated. "Would that be okay?" Ella thought about it seriously. "Mum would want you to be happy. She told me that before." She stopped. Jessie pulled her into a hug. "Before what, baby?" "Before she died. She said I had to make sure you didn't stay sad forever." Ella's voice was muffled against his shoulder. "She said you deserved to love someone again." Jessie couldn't speak for a full minute. Mom was smart too, he finally managed. But building a relationship with an 8-year-old wasn't simple. Claire had never been around kids much. She'd been the youngest in her family, focused on business since her early 20s, lived in a world of board meetings and financial reports. The first time Ella came over to Claire's penthouse for dinner, Claire had prepared like it was a business presentation. She'd researched what 8-year-olds liked, bought age-appropriate games, made mac and cheese from scratch following a recipe precisely. Ella took one look around the pristine apartment and whispered to Jessie, "Dad, I'm scared to touch anything." Claire overheard. Her face fell. "Oh, I didn't mean... Is it too much?" "It's beautiful," Jessie said quickly. "Ella's just not used to places this nice." "I used to draw on our walls at the old apartment," Ella said. "Dad let me have one wall for my art." Claire looked at her carefully decorated walls, her designer furniture, her whole life built around perfection and control. Then she looked at Ella's hopeful face. "Do you want a wall here?" Ella's eyes went huge. "Really?" "Really? Pick which one." Claire smiled. I've been meaning to make this place feel more like a home anyway." That night, Claire and Ella went to an art supply store and came back with washable markers, poster paper, and magnetic frames. They turned Claire's spare bedroom, previously a pristine home office, into Ella's room for when she visited. Ella drew a picture of a dinosaur and hung it on the wall. "It's perfect," Claire said, meaning it. Jessie watched from the doorway, falling more in love by the second. But it wasn't all easy. 2 months into dating, Ella had a nightmare about Rachel. She woke up crying, calling for her mum. Jessie held her while she sobbed, and Claire stood in the hallway of his apartment, feeling helpless. "I don't know what to do," Claire admitted later after Ella had fallen back asleep. "I want to help, but I'm not her mother. I'll never be her mother." "She doesn't need you to replace Rachel," Jessie said. "She just needs you to care, which you already do. What if I mess this up? What if I can't be what she needs?" "What if you're exactly what she needs?" Jessie took Claire's hand. "You're patient. You're kind. You show up. That's what matters." The next morning, Claire made dinosaur pancakes. Still not as good as Jessie's attempts, but close. Ella smiled and ate every bite, and that felt like progress. 3 weeks later, they arrested Christian Vance. FBI agents walked into Montgomery Capital at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. They had everything: the shell companies, the offshore accounts, recorded conversations with Castellano family members, 4 years of money laundering evidence that Christian couldn't explain away. Jessie and Claire watched from her office as Christian was led out in handcuffs. "It's done," Claire said quietly. "It's done," Jessie echoed. Christian would eventually be sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The Castellano family members involved got similar sentences. Montgomery Capital paid massive fines but survived. Claire's cooperation with the FBI investigation saved the company from criminal charges. And Jessie's SEC investigation, formally dismissed with prejudice, his record cleared. A notation added that the original complaint was fraudulent. "You could go back to financial analysis now," Claire told him a week after the arrest. "Any firm would hire you. Your reputation is restored." "What if I like where I am?" "Working at Montgomery Capital." "Working with you?" Jessie stepped closer. "If that's still an option." Claire kissed him. Right there in her office, with the door open and half the floor probably able to see. She kissed him like she'd been waiting to do it since the night in the alley, when she'd left him a $0 tip and a note that changed everything. "That's definitely still an option," she said when they broke apart. Jessie stayed at Montgomery Capital. Claire promoted him to Director of Financial Integrity, a new position created specifically to prevent what Christian had done from ever happening again. Jessie rebuilt the entire oversight system, implemented checks and balances, trained the staff on recognizing irregularities. He was good at it, better than good. Within a year, Montgomery Capital had the most robust anti-fraud systems in the industry. And Jessie and Claire, they took it slow like promised. Dinner dates became weekend trips. Meeting Ella became Ella sleeping over at Claire's penthouse apartment, the 3 of them cooking breakfast together, Claire learning to make dinosaur pancakes that actually looked like dinosaurs. "You're way better at this than me," Jessie admitted, watching Claire create a perfect stegosaurus. "I had a good teacher." Claire glanced at Ella, who was setting the table. "Plus, I've been practicing in secret." "You've been practicing pancakes in secret?" "I wanted to be good at it, for her." Jessie fell a little more in love right then. 2 years after that night at Marino's, Jessie proposed. He did it simply. No flash mob, no billboard, no grand gesture. Just the 3 of them at Central Park, the place where he'd taken Ella every Sunday after Rachel died because she'd loved the Alice in Wonderland statue. "Ella, come here for a second." Ella bounded over, 9 years old now, still small for her age, but fierce in spirit. "I need to ask you something first." Jessie knelt down to her level. "Would it be okay if Claire became part of our family, officially?" Ella's eyes went huge. "Like married?" "Like married? She wouldn't replace Mom. No one could ever do that. But she'd be your stepmom. We'd be a family. You, me, and Claire." "Can I call her Claire, Mom? Like both names together?" Jessie laughed, crying a little. "You'd have to ask her." "I love it," Claire said, also crying. "Claire, Mom, is perfect." Ella threw her arms around Claire, then Jessie, pulling them into a three-way hug. Yes, it's okay. Are you gonna ask her now?" "I'm gonna ask her now." Jessie pulled out the ring. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that had taken 6 months of saving, but was worth it. He looked up at Claire. "I'm not good at speeches, but you gave me my life back. You gave me hope when I'd forgotten what that felt like. You love my daughter like she's yours. You make me want to be better every single day. Claire Montgomery, will you marry me?" Claire pulled him up, kissed him hard. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the plaza. Claire's choice because she wanted Ella to feel like a princess for the day. Ella was the flower girl, throwing petals with absolute seriousness. Mrs. Chen from their old Queen's apartment came. So did half of Montgomery Capital's staff. So did the FBI agents who'd worked the Christian Vance case, which made for interesting reception conversation. Jessie's vows made Claire cry. Claire's vows made the entire front row cry. Ella's speech during the reception, about how she had the best dad in the world and now the best Claire mom too, made everyone cry. It was perfect. They moved into Claire's penthouse, though they let Ella design her own room exactly how she wanted. Purple walls, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, a reading nook with cushions and fairy lights. "This is way better than our old apartment," Ella said on moving day. "Hey, that apartment wasn't so bad," Jessie protested. "Dad, we could hear the subway in our bedroom." "Character building," Claire laughed, unpacking boxes in what was now their bedroom. "I love you both so much." "Even when we argue about apartment quality?" "Especially then." Life settled into something Jessie had stopped believing was possible. Happiness, real, sustainable, everyday happiness. But it wasn't without challenges. 6 months after the wedding, Jessie and Claire had their first real fight. It started with something small. Jessie had promised to attend Ella's school science fair, but a last-minute crisis at Montgomery Capital needed his attention as CFO. He'd asked Claire to go in his place. "I can't," Claire had said, distracted, staring at her laptop. "I have the quarterly board meeting." "Move it." "I can't move a quarterly board meeting, Jessie. It's been scheduled for months. And Ella's science fair has been on the calendar for weeks. I promised I'd be there." "So be there. I never said you had to stay for the crisis." "You're the CEO. If I leave during a crisis, what does that say?" "That you prioritize your daughter, which you should." Claire looked up, frustrated. "Why is this my problem?" "Because we're supposed to be partners. In everything." "We are partners, but I can't drop everything every time there's a scheduling conflict." The argument escalated. Old wounds opened. Jessie feeling like he was always the one compromising. Claire feeling like Jessie didn't understand the pressure of running a company. Both of them exhausted and saying things they didn't mean. "You know what? Maybe this was a mistake," Jessie snapped. "Maybe we moved too fast." Claire's face went pale. "Do you really believe that?" Jessie immediately regretted it. "No. God, no. I'm sorry, I can't lose another person I love, Jessie." Claire's voice cracked. "I've lost everyone. My parents, my brother, and if I lose you and Ella, you're not losing us. Claire, I'm sorry, I'm scared, okay? I'm scared of letting Ella down. I'm scared of being the dad who breaks promises. That's what my father did. That's what I swore I'd never do." Claire took a breath. "And I'm scared of failing at this, at being a stepmom, at balancing everything. I don't know how to do this." They stood there, both scared, both struggling, both realizing that marriage wasn't just about love, it was about choosing each other even when it was hard. "I'll handle the crisis remotely," Jessie said finally. "I'll go to the science fair. And I'll reschedule the board meeting," Claire countered. "I'll come with you." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because Ella matters. Because you're right. We're partners." Claire took his hand. "I'm sorry. I got so focused on work that I forgot what actually matters." They went to the science fair together. Ella's project on renewable energy won second place. She hugged both of them, and Claire whispered to Jessie, "We're figuring this out." "Yeah," Jessie said, "we are." The fights still happened. They were two stubborn people building a life together. Of course there were fights, but they got better at them. Better at listening. Better at compromising. Better at remembering what they were fighting for. He went to work doing meaningful things. He came home to a wife who challenged him and supported him and loved him fiercely. He tucked Ella in every single night, never missed a school event, kept every promise. On Sundays, they made pancakes together. Claire had perfected the dinosaur technique. Ella had moved on to requesting increasingly complicated shapes. Jessie usually just made circles and called them abstract. "Dad, that's not abstract, that's just bad," Ella would say, and Claire would defend him while also definitely agreeing with Ella, and Jessie would pretend to be offended while loving every second of it. 4 years after the proposal, Jessie was made Chief Financial Officer of Montgomery Capital. The board voted unanimously. Claire abstained to avoid any appearance of favoritism, but she'd smiled at him across the conference room table in a way that said everything. But being CFO came with challenges Jessie hadn't anticipated. The first major test came 3 months into the role. A potential acquisition deal worth $500 million. A tech startup with promising AI applications for financial modeling. The board loved it. The analysts loved it. Even Claire thought it made strategic sense. Jessie dug into the numbers and found something wrong. "The revenue projections don't match their actual user data," he told Claire in her office after midnight, both of them exhausted from reviewing documents. "They're claiming 40% month-over-month growth, but their server costs aren't scaling proportionally. Either they're lying about users or they're running the least efficient operation in tech history." "Could be legitimate overhead," Claire suggested, playing devil's advocate. "Could be, or could be they're inflating numbers to drive up the acquisition price." Jessie pulled up transaction histories. "Look at these enterprise contracts they claim to have. I called 3 of them. 1 never heard of the company. 2 said they did pilot programs that never converted to paid accounts." "You called their clients without telling me." "I did my job. Due diligence." Jessie met her eyes. "This deal is built on false numbers. If we acquire them and it comes out, we're right back where we were with Christian. Montgomery Capital's name attached to fraud." Claire leaned back in her chair. "The board is going to push back hard. They've been selling this acquisition for months. Then they can push back. I'm not signing off on it." The board meeting was brutal. Jessie presented his findings to people who didn't want to hear them, who'd already committed to the deal emotionally and financially, who saw him as an obstacle. "You're being overly cautious," one board member said. "You're letting your past cloud your judgment." "My past taught me to look closer when numbers don't add up," Jessie countered. "Christian Vance happened because people ignored red flags. I won't let that happen again." This is a completely different situation. The pattern is the same. Inflated projections, unverifiable claims, pressure to move fast before anyone looks too close. Jessie stood his ground. "I'm the CFO. My job is to protect this company's financial integrity. This deal compromises that. I vote no." The room fell silent. Jessie was blocking a deal the entire board wanted. Claire spoke up. "Jessie's right." Every head turned to her. "I want this acquisition to work, but not at the cost of our integrity. If Jessie says the numbers don't hold up, they don't hold up. We walk away." The deal fell apart. 3 months later, the startup's CEO was indicted for securities fraud. Exactly the inflated projections and false contracts Jessie had identified. If Montgomery Capital had acquired them, they'd have been caught up in federal investigations again. "You saved us," Claire told him the night the indictments came down. "I did my job." "You did more than that. You put integrity over politics. That's rare at this level." Claire kissed him. "You earned this," she told him that night. "Every bit of it. I had a pretty great mentor. You had talent and integrity and determination. I just gave you the opportunity you should have had all along." Jessie pulled her close. "You gave me everything." But the biggest test came from an unexpected place. Ella was 11 when she came home from school with a black eye and split lip. "What happened?" Jessie demanded, checking her face, terrified. "Got in a fight?" Ella winced when he touched the bruise. "With who? Why?" "Tommy Richardson said you were a criminal who married Claire for her money. He said his dad said you only got your job because you're sleeping with the CEO." Ella's jaw set stubbornly. "I told him that was a lie. He called me a gold digger's kid, so I punched him." Jessie's heart broke and swelled with pride at the same time. "Ella, you can't. I wasn't going to let him say that about you, or Claire, or us." Tears started. "But Dad, is it true? Do people really think that?" Claire appeared in the doorway, having come home early when the school called. "Some people think that. People who don't know us. People who'd rather believe gossip than truth. That's not fair." "No, it's not." Claire sat down next to Ella. "Your dad earned his position. He's brilliant at his job. He was promoted because he's the best person for the role. But some people will always assume the worst. That's their problem, not ours." "But it hurts," Ella whispered. "I know, sweetheart." Jessie hugged her carefully. "I know it does, but you can't go around punching people who say mean things. Even when they're lying about you. Even then, because we prove them wrong by living our truth, not by fighting their lies." Ella thought about that. "Did you punch Christian Vance?" "I wanted to, but you didn't. I did something better. I made sure he faced justice. That hurt him more than any punch could." Jessie tilted her chin up gently. "Words hurt. Lies hurt. But violence just makes you look like the bad guy. You're better than that." "I'm grounded, aren't I?" 2 weeks, Claire said, "for fighting at school." "That's fair," Ella sighed. "Can I still volunteer at the foundation this Saturday?" Jessie and Claire exchanged looks. Even grounded, Ella wanted to help families in need. "Yes," Claire said, "because that matters more than punishment." Tommy Richardson's father, a Montgomery Capital investor who'd lost money when the board reshuffled after Christian's arrest, pulled his accounts 2 weeks later, citing concerns about company leadership. He told anyone who'd listened that Jessie was unqualified, that Claire was letting personal relationships influence business decisions. "Let him talk," Jessie said when he saw the news. "We know the truth." But it bothered him. The whispers, the assumptions. The people who'd never believe he earned his position on merit. "You know what Christian Vance's biggest victory was?" Claire asked one night, both of them processing the latest round of gossip. "Making you doubt yourself, making you feel like you have to prove your worth constantly. Don't give him that power. Not anymore. People think I'm using you. People are wrong. I think you're brilliant. The board thinks you're brilliant. Your team thinks you're brilliant. That's what matters." Claire took his face in her hands. Stop letting other people's ignorance make you question what you've built. She was right. Jesse had spent 4 years proving himself, building financial integrity at Montgomery Capital into an industry standard. He'd turned down 3 offers from competitors at higher salaries because he believed in what they were building. He'd earned his place. He just had to remember that. Ella was 13 now, fierce and brilliant, talking about studying law so she could put bad guys away like they did with that Christian jerk. She'd inherited Rachel's determination and Claire's sharp mind and Jesse's kindness. She was going to be unstoppable. "You did good, Parker," Claire said, watching Ella through their kitchen window as she played basketball in their building's court with friends. "We did good," Jesse corrected. "Yeah, we did." That evening, the 3 of them sat down to dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread, but together, talking about their days, laughing at Ella's story about her science teacher's disastrous chemistry demonstration. After Ella went to bed, Jesse and Claire stood in their living room, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. "Do you ever think about that night?" Jesse asked. "The $0 tip?" Claire smiled. "All the time. Best tip I never left. You left me $5,000. I left you a note. The money was just an advance." Claire turned to face him. "You know what I was thinking that night, when I figured out Christian had destroyed you?" "What?" "I was thinking I had to fix this. I had to make it right. Because the idea that someone like you, someone good, someone honest, had been crushed by my company's corruption." Claire's voice shook. "I couldn't live with that. I wouldn't. You saved me. You saved yourself. You kept going for Ella. You built a life from nothing. You never gave up." Claire took his hands. "I just gave you a chance to run with your own strength. I love you, Claire Montgomery. I love you, Jesse Parker." She kissed him softly. "My husband, my partner, my best friend." From her bedroom, they heard Ella call out, "Are you guys being mushy again? Because I can hear you and it's gross, but also kind of cute." They both laughed. "We're definitely being mushy," Claire called back. "Super mushy," Jesse added. "Ugh, fine, but keep it down. I'm trying to read." Jesse pulled Claire close, swaying slightly like they were dancing to music only they could hear. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. When I was invisible." "You were never invisible, Jesse. You were just waiting for someone to look." 5 years later, Ella graduated high school as valedictorian. She gave a speech about resilience and second chances and the importance of fighting for justice. She mentioned her mom, Rachel, who taught her strength. She mentioned her dad, Jesse, who taught her integrity. She mentioned her Claire mom, who taught her that power should be used to protect people, not exploit them. There wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium. Ella went to Columbia Law School on a full scholarship. She graduated top of her class. She became a prosecutor specializing in financial crimes and corporate fraud. She put away people like Christian Vance for a living, and she was damn good at it. Jesse and Claire watched her sworn in as an assistant district attorney with pride that couldn't be measured. "Rachel would be so proud," Jesse said, wiping his eyes. "She is proud," Claire said. "Wherever she is, she's seeing this. She's proud of Ella, and she's proud of you." Jesse believed that. He'd spent years feeling like he'd failed Rachel by not saving her, but he'd kept his promise. He'd taken care of their girl. He'd made sure Ella grew up knowing she was loved, knowing she was strong, knowing she could change the world. That night, back at home, Jesse found Claire in their study, looking at something on her laptop. "What are you working on?" "Setting up a foundation." Claire turned the screen toward him. "The Rachel Parker Memorial Foundation, for families dealing with medical debt and terminal illness, to make sure no one else has to choose between treatment and survival." Jessie's throat closed up. "Claire, I should have done this years ago. I want to do it now, in Rachel's name, because she mattered, because what happened to your family shouldn't happen to anyone." Jessie couldn't speak. He just held her while she held him, both of them understanding that some debts weren't financial. They were about honor, about memory, about making meaning from loss. The foundation launched 6 months later. The first family they helped was a single mother in Brooklyn with a 10-year-old son who had leukemia. Her insurance had denied coverage for the newest treatment protocol. She was 2 weeks from losing her apartment because she'd spent rent money on medical bills. The Rachel Parker Memorial Foundation paid for the treatment, all of it, and the rent, and connected her with legal aid to fight the insurance denial. Jessie met them at the hospital, the mother, Sarah, and her son, Marcus. "I don't understand," Sarah kept saying, crying. "Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us." "Because someone should have done it for me," Jessie said. "Because my wife died when treatment was denied. Because no child should lose a parent to a system that values profit over people." Marcus, bald from chemo but smiling, hugged Jessie hard. "Thank you for saving my mom." Jessie hugged him back and thought about Ella at that age, scared and alone, about Rachel dying in a hospital bed, about all the families who never got a second chance. "You're going to beat this," Jessie told him, "and your mum is going to be there to see it." 6 months later, Marcus was in remission. Sarah sent them a photo of him back at school, hair growing in, grinning at the camera. Claire had it framed in the foundation office. The foundation grew. Claire dedicated half her time to running it, bringing the same fierce determination she'd used to expose Christian Vance. Jessie worked with her, balancing his CFO duties with foundation oversight. They hired social workers, patient advocates, legal experts. They created a model that other organizations started copying. Within 2 years, the Rachel Parker Memorial Foundation had helped over 3,000 families. Medical debt forgiveness, treatment funding, housing assistance, legal advocacy against insurance denials. "Rachel would be so proud of this," Jessie said one day, standing in the foundation office, walls covered with thank you letters and photos of families they'd helped. "She'd be proud of you," Claire corrected, "for turning your pain into purpose." "We did that together." "Yeah," Claire took his hand. "We did." But running the foundation wasn't easy. There were families they couldn't help, the cases where even unlimited money wouldn't change the medical prognosis. There were heartbreaking calls from people begging for miracles they couldn't provide. There were nights Jessie and Claire came home emotionally wrecked from meeting families in crisis. "I don't know how you do this every day," Ella said one night, 13 years old, and finding her parents crying in the kitchen after a particularly hard case, a father with terminal cancer and 3 kids under 10. "Because it matters," Claire said, wiping her eyes. "Because even when we can't save everyone, we can help. And that has to be enough." Ella thought about that. "Can I volunteer at the foundation?" "You're 13, baby," Jessie said. "So I can stuff envelopes, answer phones, do something useful." Ella's jaw set in that stubborn way that was pure Rachel. "Mom died because you couldn't afford treatment. Now you're helping other families. I want to be part of that." So Ella started volunteering at the foundation one Saturday a month. She was serious about it, dedicated, asking questions about the work, reading case files, understanding the impact. She met families they'd helped. She saw what difference money could make when applied with purpose. "I want to do this when I grow up," Ella told them after 6 months of volunteering. "Not just the foundation stuff. I want to change the system that makes this necessary. I want to fight the insurance companies and the hospitals that price people out of living." "That's law school," Claire said. "Then I'll go to law school." Ella looked at both of them. You taught me to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. So that's what I'm going to do." Jessie and Claire exchanged looks, both proud and terrified at raising a daughter with such fierce purpose. The foundation helped hundreds of families, then thousands. Claire ran it personally, using Montgomery Capital's resources and her own fortune to make sure every family got the support the Parkers never had. Jessie worked with her on it, balancing his CFO duties with foundation oversight. They were partners in everything now: marriage, business, purpose. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they went back to Marino's. The restaurant was under new ownership, but still upscale, still busy. Jessie and Claire sat in the same corner booth where she'd left him that $0 tip a decade ago. Jessie looked around the dining room, remembering. "I was so angry that night, scared. I thought a $0 tip meant I'd failed somehow." "I was terrified," Claire admitted. "I'd just discovered my company had been used for organized crime. I'd found evidence that we'd destroyed an innocent man's life. I didn't know if you'd even talk to me." The note said, "This changes everything. You weren't kidding. Neither were you when you showed up. You could have ignored it, gone home to Ella, stayed safe in the life you'd built from nothing." "Some things are worth the risk." Jessie took her hand. "You were worth the risk." They ordered the scallops, both of them this time laughing about it. The waiter was maybe 25, working hard, professional, but clearly struggling with the rush. Jessie saw himself in the kid's tired eyes, the way he moved efficiently, but never quite fast enough to catch up. "What's your name?" Jessie asked when the waiter brought their entrees. "Kevin, sir." The waiter looked worried, like he'd done something wrong. "Relax, Kevin. You're doing great. Just curious. You in school?" "NYU. Business school. Night classes." Kevin relaxed slightly. "Working my way through. What do you want to do after graduation?" "Finance, maybe. Investment banking. Something that matters." Kevin caught himself. "Sorry, I should let you eat." "You should," Claire said. "But when you bring the check, sit down for a minute. We want to talk to you." Kevin left, looking confused. Jessie and Claire ate their dinner, both remembering that night 10 years ago when everything changed. When the check came, Kevin brought it nervously. Claire had already written on the receipt. "Sit," Jessie said, gesturing to the empty chair. Kevin sat. "10 years ago I was you," Jessie said. "Working as a waiter here, single dad, going through hell, trying to make it work on tips and hope. My wife had died. My career was destroyed. I was barely surviving." Kevin listened, eyes wide. "That night, my now wife left me a $0 tip and a note that changed my life." Jessie gestured to Claire. "She offered me a second chance, a real one. Not charity, opportunity. A chance to prove myself, to rebuild what had been taken from me." "I don't understand," Kevin said. Claire pushed the receipt toward him. "Look at it." Kevin looked. His face went pale. This can't be." $5,000, Claire confirmed. "And a job offer, if you want it. Montgomery Capital, entry-level analyst position. Full benefits, salary that will let you quit this job and focus on finishing school." Why would you?" "Because someone gave me a chance when I needed one most," Jessie said. "Because that chance saved my life. Because now I'm CFO of Montgomery Capital and I know talent when I see it. You're working 2 jobs, putting yourself through business school, staying professional even when you're exhausted. That's the kind of person I want on my team." Kevin's hands shook. "I can't afford to take a risk. I have student loans, rent. My sister depends on me." "So did my daughter," Jessie said gently. "I understand being scared, but this isn't charity. It's opportunity. You'd have to work hard, prove yourself, but you'd have a real shot at the career you're trying to build." "Think about it," Claire added. "Here's my card. Call tomorrow if you're interested. We'll set up an interview. No pressure. But Jesse's right. You remind us of where we started. They left Kevin sitting there staring at the receipt and the business card, probably about to cry, probably about to have his life changed by unexpected generosity. Outside, snow was starting to fall just like it had that first night. Jesse pulled Claire close. We're creating a lot of life-changing moments lately. The foundation. Kevin. Every family we help. Every person we give a real chance. Claire kissed him. That's what money should do. Change lives. Create opportunities. Give people hope when they've lost it. Rachel would love that you're doing this in her name. We're doing it together, like everything else. Claire looked up at the falling snow. 10 years ago, I left you a $0 tip because I had something bigger to offer. Tonight we did the same thing for someone else. Maybe in 10 years, Kevin will do it for someone new. Pay it forward. Exactly. They walked home through the snow, hand in hand, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful from the pieces. Should we order the scallops? Claire teased. Only if you promise to tip this time. I'll leave the best tip they've ever seen. The next morning, Kevin called. He interviewed that week. Jesse hired him 2 weeks later. Kevin turned out to be exactly as talented as Jesse had suspected. Sharp, dedicated, willing to learn. Within 2 years, he'd paid off his student loans and moved his sister out of their cramped apartment in Queens into a place where she had her own bedroom. Thank you, Kevin told Jesse during a late night at the office, both of them working on quarterly reports. For the chance, for believing in me. You earned it, Jesse said, just like I earned my position. Never forget that. I won't. And someday, when I'm where you are, I'll do the same thing. Find some kid working themselves to death and give them a real shot. Jesse smiled. That's the goal. Kevin went on to become one of Montgomery Capital's top performers, eventually running his own division. He created a scholarship program for business students from low-income families. He never forgot where he came from, and he never stopped paying it forward. Outside, snow was starting to fall. Jesse pulled Claire close. You know he's going to remember this forever. Good. Everyone deserves a moment when everything changes. You gave me that moment. You gave it to me too. Claire kissed him in the snow, in front of the restaurant where they'd started, in the city they'd built a life in together. Best $0 tip I ever left. Best note I ever found. They stood there for a moment, snow collecting in Claire's hair, Jesse's arm around her waist, both of them reflecting on the decade they'd built together. From a hidden note under a plate to this, a family, a foundation, a legacy of giving people second chances they'd never forget. They walked home through the snow, hand in hand, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful from the pieces. Somewhere in Queens, in a studio apartment that was now rented to a different struggling family, Mrs. Chen probably still told stories about the single dad and his daughter who'd made it out, who'd found their happy ending. Somewhere in federal prison, Christian Vance served his sentence, his reputation destroyed, his crimes exposed. Somewhere at the DA's office, Ella Parker worked late on a case, fighting for justice just like her parents taught her. She had her mother Rachel's determination, her father Jesse's integrity, and her stepmom Claire's fierce commitment to doing what was right no matter the cost. She was everything they'd hoped she'd become. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a penthouse overlooking the city, a photo sat on the mantel. Jesse, Claire, and Ella, all three of them laughing, all three of them home. Next to it sat another photo. Rachel, young and healthy, smiling at the camera. Because some people never leave, even after they're gone. They live on in the choices made in their honor, in the foundations built in their name, in the daughters who carry their strength forward. The story that started with $0 and a hidden note had become a story about everything money couldn't buy: integrity, love, family, purpose, and second chances that felt like first chances at really living. Jesse Parker had been a waiter who found a note under a plate. Now he was a husband, a father, a CFO, a philanthropist, and a man who understood that sometimes the best tips aren't about money at all. They're about hope. If you enjoyed Jesse and Claire's story, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of second chances and unexpected love. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling us about a time someone's unexpected kindness changed your life. We read every single comment. See you in the next story.